From the heartland to Hollywood, tens of thousands of workers threatening to disrupt major American industries amid a nationwide worker shortage. Workers preparing to draw the picket line over better wages and conditions. Overnight, the country's largest public sector strike in 2 years at agricultural manufacturer John Deere.
A full-blown farmer strike is underway, and it's already shaking the agricultural industry to its core. The reason? A controversial statement from John Deere's CEO that has farmers across the country up in arms. What did he say to trigger this massive backlash? And why are farmers who once swore by John Deere now turning their backs on the brand? This isn't just about one bad comment. It's the boiling point of years of frustration. As tractors roll into protests and supply chains hang in the balance, one question looms. Is this the beginning of John Deere's downfall? And if so, how badly will it affect the country's food supply? The strike is set to take place during the harvesting season, a critical time when many farmers need parts for their equipment. John Deere wasn't always the villain of the farming world. In fact, it built its empire by doing the opposite, earning trust, innovating for farmers, and producing machines that were reliable, durable, and easy to repair. For generations, farmers didn't just buy John Deere tractors. They built their livelihoods around them. The company designed equipment that could withstand heavy use. And when something broke, fixing it was as simple as grabbing a wrench. Parts were readily available, repair manuals were passed down like family heirlooms. And if you needed help, your local John Deere dealer, often a neighbor, had your back. But that John Deere is gone. Over time, something changed. Instead of empowering farmers, Deere began controlling them. By the early 2000s, their tractors weren't just machines anymore. They were computers on wheels, locked down by proprietary software. Suddenly, a simple repair wasn't simple at all. What once cost a few dollars in parts and an afternoon in the barn now required a Deere-certified technician and a hefty bill. And here's where it gets worse. Farmers quickly realized they didn't truly own their equipment anymore. They could buy it, use it, and maintain it. But under Deere's restrictions, key repairs and diagnostics were off limits unless they paid the company for access. Sound like ownership? It wasn't. It was a lease in disguise. For many, this shift felt like a betrayal. The brand that once stood for freedom and self-reliance had turned into a corporate gatekeeper. And when the CEO made his now infamous statement, it wasn't just offensive, it was a slap in the face to the very people who made John Deere a household name. At first, the changes were subtle. A new tractor model here, a software update there. But by the early 2000s, John Deere had begun a shift that no one saw coming, one that would put farmers in a financial chokehold. The company started integrating proprietary software into its tractors, branding it as a step towards smart farming. On paper, it sounded great. Advanced GPS systems, automated controls, and diagnostics that could detect issues before they became serious problems. But here's the twist. That same software locked out the people who needed it most. For decades, if something broke, you fixed it. You didn't need permission, a wrench, some spare parts, and a little know-how were all it took to keep a tractor running. But John Deere changed the rules. Suddenly, repairing your own equipment wasn't just difficult. It was illegal. Because of Deere's proprietary software, many repairs required access to encrypted codes and diagnostic tools that only John Deere technicians could use. Need to replace a sensor? You could physically install it, sure, but your tractor wouldn't recognize the new part unless it was activated by an official Deere service provider. And that meant paying up. A quick, inexpensive fix that once cost a few dollars at a local shop now required an expensive service call, sometimes totaling thousands. Farmers found themselves stuck, unable to work on their own machines without Deere's approval. And here's where it gets worse. This wasn't just about repairs, it was about control. Deere realized that by locking down repairs, it could create a never-ending revenue stream. If farmers couldn't fix their own equipment, they had no choice but to keep paying John Deere. At that point, ownership became an illusion. Farmers didn't truly own their tractors anymore. They were just leasing them under Deere's strict conditions. As frustration grew, so did the fight for the right to repair. Initially, farmers tried to adjust. They gritted their teeth and paid the extra fees, hoping it was just the cost of modern farming. But the costs kept rising. Repairs that once took an afternoon and a few dollars now dragged on for days, sometimes weeks, all while fields sat untouched and bills piled up. Some farmers lost thousands just waiting for a technician to show up. Others had no choice but to buy entirely new equipment because repairing their own tractors had become just as expensive as replacing them. Then came the breaking point. Stories started spreading of farmers stranded in the middle of harvest season, unable to fix a simple issue because their tractors were locked behind John Deere software. Crops rotted in the fields. Dairy farmers watched milk spoil because they couldn't run their automated feeding systems. The frustration boiled over into anger, and soon that anger turned into action. What started as quiet grumbling at farm supply stores and local coffee shops became an organized movement. If John Deere could dictate when and how farmers repaired their tractors, what was stopping other corporations from doing the same with everything else? Then the movement reached lawmakers. In 2023, Colorado passed the first ever agricultural right to repair law, forcing companies like John Deere to provide farmers and independent mechanics with the same diagnostic tools and repair information as official dealers. It was a massive win, proving that Deere's monopoly on repairs wasn't untouchable. And once the floodgates opened, other states followed. Minnesota, Nebraska, and Montana introduced similar laws, each one gaining momentum. In Washington, consumer advocates pushed for nationwide reform, arguing that repair restrictions weren't just unfair, they were crippling the very people who fed the nation. Meanwhile, farmers in Europe and Australia launched their own fights, demanding the right to repair their equipment without corporate interference. So, what do you think would be John Deere's best countermeasure? Hold still and watch their reputation being dragged through the mud, which, by the way, is what their tractors go through every day on farms, or fight back? Definitely the second option. The company spent millions lobbying against the legislation, claiming that unrestricted repairs could lead to hacking risks, safety issues, and even environmental damage. But the more Deere resisted, the angrier farmers got. To them, it was never about hacking, it was about survival. Every time a Deere executive spoke against right to repair, it only fueled the fire. The battle wasn't just about fixing a broken tractor anymore. It had become something much bigger. A fight for independence, for fairness, for the right to do what their fathers and grandfathers had done for generations. And it was far from over. For years, farmers fought against John Deere's repair monopoly on their own. They lobbied, they protested, they took their fight to lawmakers. But in January 2025, everything changed. The Federal Trade Commission and attorneys general from multiple states filed a landmark lawsuit against John Deere, accusing the company of illegal monopolistic practices in the repair industry. The lawsuit argued that Deere's restrictive repair policies violated antitrust laws, blocking competition, and financially strangling farmers who had no choice but to use the company's overpriced repair services. This was the first time the federal government had directly taken legal action against Deere, and the stakes were massive. If the case succeeded, it could force the company to open up repairs, breaking its monopoly and setting a precedent for the entire right-to-repair movement. But John Deere wasn't going down without a fight. The company dismissed the lawsuit as baseless, claiming that its repair restrictions were necessary for safety and innovation. However, with farmers, lawmakers, and now federal regulators united against them, the question remains, how much longer can Deere hold onto its control? And if they lose, what will it mean for the future of farming and the food supply? Here's your rewritten paragraph with no word skipped or missing, while incorporating some word changes for improved flow. Protecting intellectual property and ensuring equipment safety while preventing hacking. Deere executives warned that permitting third-party repairs might compromise the software in their tractors, potentially leading to safety risks or even environmental harm if systems were incorrectly modified. However, farmers and lawmakers remained unconvinced. The FTC contended that Deere's true motive wasn't safety, it was control. The agency provided evidence that the company had deliberately restricted repairs to extract more money from farmers, creating a cycle of dependency that forced them into expensive service agreements. Meanwhile, Deere intensified its lobbying efforts, spending millions to sway lawmakers and weaken right-to-repair legislation at state and federal levels. The company funneled money into political campaigns, enlisted trade groups to spread fear about third-party repairs, and even pressured dealerships to support its stance.